I'm here now with Joe Siclare. He is the NFL Executive Vice President and Senior Advisor. It's so good to see you here.
Nice to be here.
So allowing firms to invest in the NFL has been discussed for years, but I'm curious to hear what the tipping point was, because Josh Harris was saying that his $6 billion deal for the Washington Commanders was a major catalyst helping push the NFL to focus its attention on allowing institutional investors to buy stakes. Do you agree with that? Was that the tipping point?
I'm not sure that was a tipping point, but I think that was certainly a point in time where we started to look at it in earnest. We started this process, believe it or not, back in 2019 with our finance committee. As you know, some of the other sports leagues in the U.S. started down this road around that time. I think the first investment that was made in one of the other sports was 2020. So we've been looking at this for a while, but our finance committee just thought, let's just step aside and let the market develop a little bit. And that's what they did. Now, during that period of time, there were two controlling interests of teams sold, Denver and Washington, as you mentioned. And during those two processes, we just put this aside and really didn't go down this road. After the Washington sale was complete, the Commissioner Goodell named a special committee to study all of our ownership policies. A lot of the focus has been on this one, but our ownership policies are actually broader than this. They looked at all of our policies and felt that this was the right time to go down this road.
Yet, even with this week's vote and all the deliberations of the past year, it wasn't exactly a quick decision. I believe the announcement came out 90 minutes after the meeting began. Which specific aspect of this decision took the most time to deliberate over?
Well, there wasn't a lot of deliberation. As I say, the committee's been working hard on this for a year. Over the course of that, we had many committee meetings, and we also updated the full membership several times during the process. So everyone was pretty much up to speed as to the direction we were heading. But when our ownership policy, we view that as one of the fundamental strengths of our business model. Our ownership policy, the way we share revenue amongst the clubs, our debt policy. These are all things for a boardroom, not a locker room, but these are really important to our business model. So when you're looking at making a change to one of those, we spend a lot of time. So the 90 minutes that we were in there yesterday, there was not a lot of deliberation, but it was really just methodically going through the process, reestablishing and reminding everyone what our goals were when we started, going through the process of the last year, the meetings we had. We had a lot of discussion in the marketplace with industry experts and PE fund managers. So it was really just going through all of that and then laying out what the policy is and really focusing the full membership on some of the specific elements of the policy that we felt was important. So that took time. There was a little bit of conversation on the floor. I wouldn't call it deliberation, but a little bit of conversation. How
did you arrive at the 10% limit?
Well, that actually goes to the point of being very deliberate and measured. One of the things that, as we looked at what the other sports leagues did, as you know, they're much higher. I think our owners just want to take one step at a time. This is a very new emerging asset class. I think we could all have thoughts about where the market will go and what the market dynamics are, but no one really knows for sure. We do think that the program will grow. More funds will look to invest in sports. I think many of them look at it as an indirect way of buying into the best media content there is. Mm-hmm. So I think more funds will be interested. And as far as the league goes, I think more owners will look at this over time and think about how it works for their franchise. So we wanted to start at a lower percentage and then go from there.
Obviously, anyone who invests in anything gets a say to a certain extent in what goes on in that business. It's obviously a much different structure when you're dealing, say, with individuals and families.
Correct.
That are a little bit more contained. With the whole PE structure, obviously you're dealing with the PE firm itself, but obviously all of their limited partners that might be investing in that. How much say are some of those limited partners going to have, or are they going to have to funnel that through the general partner?
Yeah, it's a great question, and that is actually, there's been a lot of attention to that. People hear about private equity investment. What does that really mean? In our case, the controlling owner, per our league policies, pre-existing league policies, has full control over every aspect of the team. Limited partners really have no governance say at all. And in this case, it's the same thing. These are non-controlling limited partner shares, no governance rights, no say in how the team operates.
In terms of timeline, you have said that the NFL is eyeing the first sales to be announced at the December owners meeting. Do you anticipate there to be multiple sales announcements at that time?
Well, we didn't say there would be a sale. What we told the owners yesterday is that we would try our best, now that we put the policy in place, we would try our best, if anyone was interested, to accommodate a sale, to go through our normal approval process. So if any transactions are ready to be approved, we'll do our best to get them approved this year. Don't know if there will be any.
Okay. What's the process then for each investment? Does the league need to approve each separate transaction, including when the firms exit some or all of those stakes?
Yes, our typical policies are any sale transaction has to be approved either by the membership or some of it under certain terms are delegated to the finance committee. But all of our approval processes would still apply exactly the way they do with individuals here.
What is the financial health of the NFL right now?
Financial health is excellent. We are the largest league by many measures. Every team is profitable. We have a long-term media deals, long-term collective bargaining agreement. Financial health is excellent.
Every team profitable, so every team in theory could stand on its own. You don't necessarily need the cohesiveness of the NFL as it provides it.
Well, they're all profitable. I mean, it is part of the. When you say stand on their own, I'm not sure what you mean by that. They have to be part of the league.
Speaking,
I mean, they have to be part of the league to drive their business, but they're all profitable.
You know, I look at the other leagues, and you mentioned the NBA earlier. It's seen moving forward with expanding its teams after signing that big media rights deal. The NFL currently has 32 teams, which is like a magic number when it comes to your playoff format. Is there any consideration being given to expanding the NFL beyond the current 32?
There's no real conversation. You know, our commissioner has addressed this question several times. I think the last time, maybe last Super Bowl. You know, down the road, is there an international division of some sort? Perhaps, but there's no real conversation going on right now about expanding.
I ask because given the demand from institutional investors beyond the 4 that you approved to come in and make proposals to buy stakes, football and sports is an emerging asset class. So, you know, there's not enough supply. There's plenty of demand, though.
There is plenty of demand, for sure.
So when you look across other leagues, what do you see as the single biggest benefit and also the single biggest drawback when it comes to allowing outside capital to invest in the league?
Well, we hope that we've addressed, if there are any drawbacks, we hope we've addressed them by being measured and starting off slow. I think probably one of the biggest issues to address is just making sure that your fans understand that it's not going to change the operations of the business. Again, going to your prior question, no say in the operations. People hear private equity and they think about that. They think about taking control of companies, et cetera. That's not going to happen here. So I think we've tried our best to make sure to communicate to the fans that none of this really changes. This is just financing for owners. It's an option to access new pools of capital for financing, and that's it.
What about sort of the longevity of that capital? Obviously, when you're dealing with investors and the nature, at least, of what private capital is, obviously they are long-term investors, but they're not necessarily buy-it-for-life investors that I think the NFL has been accustomed to for so many years. What was the discussion around the potential that there could be a churn in those investments much quicker than
great. It's a great question. As we've looked at this and studied this, going back to trying to predict market dynamics, one of the things we arrived on was liquidity expectations. And you're right, a lot of private equity firms, they typically buy and hold for a short period of time. One of our policy parameters is that they have to hold for at least 6 years. But even beyond that, the funds that we're talking about, these global funds, they have smaller funds within them. Some of them are longer duration, and some of them will be making the investments. So I think it remains to be seen. But I think that goes to what I said before about we see the program expanding down the road. If there's sales, we believe there'll be buyers.
I am curious about the league's stance on players, active players, taking ownership stakes in the teams.
Well, our current policy, the one that we passed yesterday, would not allow that. I mean, that is a concept that we've thought about, but I think we'd have to think a lot more about that down the road.
If an active player tried to make an investment through, say, a PE fund, would that also be basically barred?
It's prohibited by the current policy.
Okay.
So each of the 4 groups that you've pre-approved can buy stakes in up to 6 teams. How do you ensure that there's no conflict if one firm owns stakes in all 6 teams?
Well, we thought about that a lot as well. And one of the key principles when I go back to sort of restating our goals is that we want this to be available to all the teams. And obviously, for it to be available to 32 teams and you only have 4, you have to let them do multiple investments. We're confident. I mean, these fund managers are professional fund managers. They know how to invest in businesses. We have parameters around flow of information, things like that. But we don't see any conflict. Again, they're limited to only buying 10% of any individual team. So that addresses the conflict issue somewhat.
When you look at the valuation of these teams and maybe the potential that this new crop of investors could actually help to boost those evaluations, partly because of the churn, partly because of the greater transparency, was there a number looked at, discussed?
No, not really. As a matter of fact, that's an important point. Going back to your earlier question about the financial health of the league, our valuations are higher than the other sports leagues. But we've always thought about our valuations as being the result of the entire business model, primarily the game on the field, it all starts there. But beyond that, I talked about the strength of our business model. Franchise valuations are the result of all of that. We who are not doing this to say, well, if we flip this switch, valuations will go up.
Yeah.
Valuations will take care of themselves. As long as we keep the game strong, keep the business model strong, the valuations will take care of themselves.
And one last question, as a lifelong Chicago Bears fan, can you flip a switch and actually make them a good team once again?
I was speaking to their owner, George McCaskey, yesterday. Hope springs eternal for all 32 teams right now.